So obviously in most businesses, the customer is always right. It's a kind of an idiom that helps people sell things. Well, what about when the customer isn't quite right? I mean, everyone's obviously entitled to their opinions, and everyone's opinion is valid. While toy collectors tend to have, shall we say, more colorful opinions, feedback on toy lines. When I was running the Masters of the Universe Classics line, Ghostbusters, DC Universe at Matty Collector, I was kind of the victim of a lot of fans. Any disappointment they basically had with anything, it was always kind of on me. I had a very thick skin. I didn't really mind this because most of the complaints were things that I had no control over. But there were a few things that fans brought up over the years that I adamantly, well, disagreed with. I mean, obviously, as a collector myself, I felt a very kinship to the subscribers. But there were some things that came up that I was like, really? So here's some examples. All right, the first one was our original release of She-Ra in the Classics line. Now, in order to maximize the number of ways you could display She-Ra, we included two heads. One head in Filmation look and one with the vintage mask. And we had a feature so that you could take the mask and you could flip it upside down, because that was actually how it was originally intended and showed up in the mini-comics. Well, in order to execute this mask flipping, you had to pull it out for her head and then flip it over and plug it back in. And this required, of course, a plug for said mask. Fans were outraged over this. They were saying Mattel was misogynistic and I was sexist. Why would I put a hole in She-Ra's head? The thing is, she's not meant to be displayed this way. She's meant to be displayed with the mask on. If you display her without the mask, and, I mean, you've got the Adora head, and we eventually did a Bubble Power She-Ra where we had to sort of enlarge the hair in order to hold the mask on and make it removable without the hole feature. So that was how we addressed that later on with a She-Ra variant, but man, fans were so angry at us. And the thing was, we already gave you basically 3 looks: Filmation look, and then vintage mask on or off. But people wanted a 4th. All right, next up is Slimer. All right, you're probably saying, well, why would fans have a problem with Slimer? So let me kind of give some context. When we had the Ghostbuster Classics line on Matty Collector, we also sold it by subscription. And the issue was, well, there weren't that many characters, and we had to rely on, like every line, reuse to pay for the fully tooled figure. So putting out the Rookie from the video game was going to be a subscription-only figure, but the subscription didn't go through that year. We just didn't get enough, and we actually didn't expect that. We didn't even have a meter. We just assumed that there'd be enough Ghostbuster support. So to make it up to the people that did subscribe, but we had to basically say, sorry, the subscription's not going to go forward, we sent them all a free glow-in-the-dark Slimer. Oh my gosh, the hate mail I got over this. I mean, it was a free toy. It was a variant, yes, of Slimer, but it didn't cost you anything. We even paid for shipping. And I got so many angry emails and just slammed online, like, what a ripoff. Like, you're giving, all we get is this. You didn't have to get anything. We could have just canceled the subscription. We still got the Rookie figure out, I think, as a convention figure or a one-off or something. I don't even recall. It's been so many years. But yeah, we couldn't do the whole subscription that year. Another Ghostbuster item that I personally, yes, also was targeted and got a lot of slack on was our Ecto-1. People basically just saying it was completely overpriced. It was $350, I want to say, and we didn't hit the goal. We weren't able to fund it. I think today, looking at things like Galactus and the Sentinel, you realize that, yeah, that's, these things are expensive to do. And it was going to be big with lights and sounds and the whole 9 yards. But unfortunately, we just could not hit that minimum amount that we needed to pre-sell. And wow, fans just took this out on me as if this was completely my fault. All right, cost what it cost. We're back to Hordak. And Hordak, every time we released Hordak, there seemed to always be an issue with him. Whether it was the original one or the Cherry Popsicle version, Filmation, it's like we couldn't release Hordak without there being some kind of controversy. The first Hordak we did in Classics was basically an update of the vintage figure, but it did include things like the 2000X staff and a longer loincloth. Well, fans were really angry that we weren't doing a true 2000X version. Part of this was because the 2000X show had just ended. It was very fresh, and we didn't get a Hordak figure, or an action figure, in the 2002 line. We did get a Staction figure from the Four Horsemen, but people wanted an articulated 2000X styled Hordak. And the fact that when they got it in classics, it didn't look like the animation. It looked more like the vintage figure, but with some 2000X accessories. So, yeah, you can go buy the Staction figure, it's available, but Classics wasn't a 2000X line. It had some elements of it, but it was always done in the style of the vintage line. So, yeah, this was a big issue with fans at the time, and the amount of hate mail I got saying, look, why can't you just do a 2000X version? The idea was eventually we might do 2000X, just like eventually we would do Filmation. But first, we were doing them in the Classics look. So when we put out our Filmation Hordak, fans wanted a truly animated Hordak, but that's an entirely different line. Classics wasn't an animated line. It was a, I guess a realistic line, looking like toys. Eventually, there was a animated Hordak in a different line, an animated line. So when we put out the Hordak, and he didn't have the, sort of minimized animation aspects that the later animated release had, fans were like, this isn't an animated Hordak. It's not supposed to be. It was supposed to be a Classics interpretation of how he looked in the Filmation series. And the reason we didn't include a more, say, animated head is because we knew we were going to do a fully animated version in the, I think what became the Grayskull line, which was the Filmation line, this one. So, yeah, the idea was to sell a lot of toys and to be able to sell Hordak over and over again. If we did it all in one figure, we would have never been able to sell this figure, even though I think Super 7 sold that figure. All right, can't finish up Motu without a stop with Mighty Spector. And this was just one because, wow, the amount of crap I got on this one. People just, saying that I was trying to replace He-Man, that, I wanted Spector to be the new... Yeah, if that was true, he would be. I even killed him off. Yes, he technically has my face because I was a Royal Guard, and then I made the Royal Guard Mighty Spector, or, Lieutenant Spector, and then continued that story, making him Mighty Spector. If I knew I was going to get to put Mighty Spector in the line, I would have never named the Royal Guard Lieutenant Spector. But I thought it was dumb to have Lieutenant Spector and a Mighty Spector, so I made them the same character. So I guess, yes, with the idea that, since I looked like the Guard, that was me under the mask. But it's not me. I wasn't trying to put me in it. And I would have never done the Royal Guard if I knew down the line that I was going to have the chance to put an original character in the line. That wasn't, at the time when the Royal Guards came out, this was not even on the map. So, yeah, I was not trying to make Spector the new star of the show, and I think people can realize in hindsight that he's just a one-off character that showed up in the line, and that's it. All right. Last one I want to talk about is the hoverboard. This was one of my favorite toys that I worked on my entire 10 years at Mattel, but wow, the anger. So we all fell in love with hoverboards when we first saw them in Back to the Future 2. It was just, hey, flying a skateboard, right? So the thing is, there were 27 of these in the movie. And I don't mean, different ones like Griff's or the other gang members. I mean, there were actually 27 different boards. There were close-up ones. There were versions that had springs under them, so when Marty stepped on it, it would have like a springy motion and look hovery. There was even one that actually had wheels under it for what they called the hero shots. All right, so knowing there were so many different versions, yes, putting out a definitive version was going to be very tricky. And just fans were not just angry at that, they were angry that the hoverboard didn't float. That was the biggest complaint. And I was like, guys, we don't have the technology. I mean, yeah, people have like these prototype hoverboards that cost, thousands and tens of thousands of dollars and use magnet tracks and all that. Fans would send me, all these links to German laboratories that were coming up with all sorts of stuff. Why didn't you apply this technology? It was a $120 prop replica. Yeah, I know that in the movie there were lots of versions and different, aesthetically, but the idea that it was going to float, I mean, fans were really, really angry about this, that we didn't, like, they were like, what's the point of buying a hoverboard if it's not going to float? Did anyone buy Thor's hammer expecting they would be able to throw it and it was going to come back at them or, summon thunder and lightning from the heavens? No, it's a prop replica. You hold it and you put it on your desk or you mount it on a wall and, you call it a day. Same thing with a lightsaber. You're going to pick up a, Master Replicas or Hasbro lightsaber and think you'd be able to cut your friend in half? No, it's a fun thing to have on your desk. So Yeah, on this one, disinclined to acquiesce to your request. The hoverboard was never going to float, but the amount of hate mail I got just over that one aspect, that we produced a hoverboard that didn't float, what was the point? Ugh, yeah. All right, well, customer is always right, but sometimes they can go a little far. What did you think? Was I right? Was I wrong to have these opinions about the feedback? Let me know, and as always, thanks for watching and sharing. It's the best way to support this channel. See you next time.